I prepared a presentation for you, so I will walk through the slides for that presentation, and after that you have the possibility to ask me questions, and maybe we can do some other stuff related to the subject. Okay, then I have to show the screen. Yeah. Okay, first of all, welcome to the live stream. It has been a couple of weeks ago since I did a live stream. It's pretty hot in here, so I have to take a sip of my water sometimes. Welcome to the live stream, and I like that I can sit down and talk with you via those live streams and interact with you, with my subscribers. There are some new issues, no, not really issues, but some things that I want to share with you. I love that I can sit down for an hour or so to interact, but also to answer all your questions in a manner that I don't really have the time for throughout the week, and that's why I want to use those live streams for. And also you can suggest topics for videos, or maybe a topic in a video, for example, a topic in this live stream when it comes to computers for music production or laptops for music production. Please suggest, leave it in the comments in the chat. I want to first start off with some news, with some DJ producer related news and some news about the channel. First of all, FL Studio arrived for Mac, and to be honest, I thought that it would never arrive, and that was one of those Duke Nukem myths that lived on forever, like 10 years. We're busy with a new version, we're busy with a new game, but it finally arrived. FL Studio for the Mac, I'm really curious if you have experience with that new version. Is it stable? How does it interact? How are the specifications when it comes to performance? Is that any good compared to other DAWs? I'm really curious. I reached the 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel recently, and I want to grab that opportunity to state out a couple of different things, because I now qualify for monetization. The standard content, like the standard YouTube movies, will stay free. That is free content that I provide for you. Additional content I will make available on Patreon, and over the last videos, if you are a subscriber, you saw that I, at the end of the video, maybe had a reference to Patreon. My video with San Diego, for example, was a video that was half an hour long, and I needed to cut it, but I need to cut out information for the audience retention on YouTube, but there was useful information, so it was really hard to cut that video, but I finally managed to bring it down to, 13 minutes or so. But the full interview I made available for my Patreon members. I hit the 1,000 subscribers and I applied for monetization, and that was approved, so I'm pretty happy. But I don't wanna add ads to my videos yet. Until it is a substantial amount of money. It's now a couple of euros, so it's not really interesting, and only annoying for you and not really interesting for me. So I'd like to have that, to keep that way for as long as possible. So no ads for the next year or so. What my goal is, I want to be a full-time DJ, a full-time producer, YouTuber. Those are three things. I know that. I have my work, but I want to step over. I want to make the switch to the DJing, producing, and YouTube, and that's why I need the money. And because I have to pay the rent too. I want to sponsor my YouTube videos with the ads, but that is such a small amount of money, and even the big YouTubers don't earn a lot of money of those YouTube ads. But I'm working on ways, for example, that Patreon thing, to make some more money when it comes to YouTube, and I do Skype calls. You can book me for a Skype call. Then this live stream, I wanted to change up a little bit and try out some new stuff. So I did a video, and then I did a live stream so you can ask me questions. Now I want to turn it the other way. I have a subject that is laptops for music production, because it is a special brand of computers. There's a fly over there, and that's annoying me, and it's sitting still on my on my couch. Okay, so I want to try out a new way of working, maybe, because it can make maybe better videos, because I have your feedback. I want to touch up that subject of those laptops, and with your feedback, with your questions, I can make hopefully a better video. And I hope that there are enough viewers on this, on the chat, and on the leave it in the comments below if you're watching it afterwards. I did some research. How did I came to that? I did some research, and I saw some horrible advice on YouTube about laptops for music production, things that are flat out wrong and advising the wrong machines. So there is a gap for that, for some good solid advice. So please leave me some comments, some feedback. That's helpful for the next video, and of course for this live stream. Then the subject that we are talking about, I'm switching back to the chat just to see if I'm not missing anything. No, not right now. Okay, switching back to the presentation. Okay, laptops for music production. Date July 2018. That's really important because development in computers is going so fast. In what I say now can be obsolete in a couple of weeks, months, or maybe even days. So that date is really important. But I think, well, for the next 3 months or so, you're pretty solid, maybe half a year. What makes me the expert in computers? I noticed that some guys try to challenge me on a couple of things, and said some things that were flat out wrong, and I had a really heated argument with one of those guys. Of course, I don't know everything. I don't know the exact type number of an i7 processor. How many gigahertz is that? How many cores is that? I don't know on the top of my head. But there is something called the internet, so you can find out, and the Intel website, that's the producer of the processor, is a really helpful tool with that. I have a degree in software engineering. I don't use it, but I studied to be a software engineer, so I know a bit what it is to be a software developer, how a software developer thinks, how you make software, and why certain things take up some amount of memory or some amount of CPU power, and why an SSD, for example, is quicker for music production. That kind of thing. I also worked 10 years in a computer store. I did that for little whiles full time, but it was mostly a weekend job. I studied software engineering, and the weekends I worked at a computer store. A friend of mine owns a computer store, and I stay in touch with him. And I called him before I wanted to make this video and this live stream to update me on the latest and greatest about computers. How is it with services nowadays of the big computer firms, for a firm like Dell, for example, and I will come back to that in a bit. What are good computers? How is it with build quality, for example, of computers? He can advise me in that as nobody else, because he sells that stuff on a daily basis. I don't anymore. I quit that computer store a couple of years ago, but I still know the basics, and I have to update that knowledge with the latest and greatest, and that's what I did. So I know what I'm talking about, and I also produce music, so that combination of being a little bit of a computer expert and producing music is ideal to advise you on which computer to have or to take for music production, and also laptops. In one of my previous videos, the one about the best computer for music production in 2017 and the one for music production in 2018, the CPU for music production videos, I zoomed in on a specific topic, and for that CPU, that was specifically, of course, the CPU, but the computers for music production were pretty general and not zoomed in on the laptops and the brands and what kinds of models do you have to choose. I get a lot of requests. What is a good computer? I have this computer. Is it suitable? So what I do in this video, I zoom in on specifically laptops, and I give you examples of good brands and good models of those brands that you can use to do in your music production, and also some things you have to bear in mind when buying a laptop. This is a sheet that I stole from one of my previous presentations, laptop or a desktop. Please choose a desktop in every single aspect, because of your wallet and because of speed. The only reason why you should choose a laptop if portability is a necessity and not a convenience. The only reason. Please choose a desktop if you save some money and you have more speed and a bigger screen. I have compiled a blacklist and a whitelist. What should you not get and what should you get? In the next sheet, I have compiled a blacklist of computers or brands that are targeted to be cheap, to sell as many units as possible, and quality isn't really a thing that they make their products for. Quality is absent with those products. It will work, yes, for maybe a year or so, but if you have problems after that warranty term, you have a problem. If your motherboard is broken, no, you have a problem. But I have compiled a whitelist too. Those machines are built for quality. If your motherboard is broken, well, I pretty much can guarantee you that after 3 years, they still can fix your laptop. The brands that can't do that are MSI, Acer, Lenovo, and Samsung. Again, cheap. That is what they are selling. Cheap shit. And that is fine for just internet or once or twice a week, check your email. That's fine, but not for music production. You use those machines every single day, and you put a strain on them. You put a strain in heat, because your processor has has to be very powerful, so it needs to provide that warmth somewhere. It has to get lost of that warmth, and those cheaper notebooks are not designed to do that, not to distribute that heat, for example. So I also compiled a whitelist for notebooks, machines that are built to last, and that there is a good service if there is something wrong with it. Yes, you pay for that. I come back in that in a minute. Good brands are, for example, HP with their EliteBook series, really targeted to the business market. Asus or Asus, I don't know how you pronounce it. For example, Dell. Yeah, I talked about that earlier. I talked in my previous stream about Dell when it comes to service, that it was bad. Yes, that was true a couple of years ago. I found out that is improved now. So you can pretty much safely buy a Dell computer and have a proper service with that too. So I can say stuff, but if I'm wrong, I'm also not afraid to admit that. So nowadays you can safely buy a Dell. And of course, Apple with their MacBook Pro series. They have some cons to that MacBook Pro series, and I will come back into that in a minute. So the HP EliteBook, Asus, Dell, and the MacBooks. Then the recommendations for notebooks. I got in a discussion over the last couple of videos with a couple of guys. Yeah, but it's high budget, and will that work? That's why I made a special topic in my last video. Will it work? You can produce music with very basic laptops, with those cheap as Acer laptops. Yeah, you can produce music with that. With budget notebooks, you can produce music with an i3 processor, which is a low processor. Yes, you can produce music with that. What am I advising? When I divide what am I advising in 4 levels. The first one being the budget range, which are those Acer, MSI, and Lenovo stuff. Then the mid-range, let's say the i5 processors, not bad, but it could be better. Then the high-range stuff, and that is where my videos were about, and this live stream also. And there is a degree above that, and that is the stupidly expensive stuff that is so expensive that you don't, the price, speed improvement is so little that I say it's just plain stupid to buy that. What you have to bear in mind, a good laptop is expensive. You have to bear in mind you have to save at least €1,000 or dollars for that. There are pretty much no exceptions to that. A good laptop is between €1,000 and €3,000 for music production, at least. I'm not talking about those cheap as MSI stuff. You can go for a gaming laptop, and those are pretty good suited for music production, but there is one thing: you pay for a good graphics cards because games need good graphics cards, but you don't need that for music production. So you pay for something you don't need, except when you are indeed try to game with that, or video editing, for example, or 3D modeling, for example. Then you need that. But when you want to only use it for music production, you don't need that graphics card. When it comes to a PC, you can pretty much configure that, except for a Apple. So you can leave that out if you don't need it. But with a laptop, a gaming laptop is targeted to gaming, and therefore there is a good graphics card in there. Oh yeah, I touched upon that subject. Will it work? Cheaper laptops, yes, those will work too. But I'm talking about you are a producer, or you want to produce on a professional level. You want to be a more professional user, so you need those more professional machines. You can garden with a cheap plastic uh, 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 um, shovel, for example. Yes, that will do the work also. But if you are a professional gardener, you need a good solid spade with metal, that won't break as fast, and has a good a grip handle, so you don't get those callus, those really hard skin on your hands, for example. That is the difference between those cheaper laptops and the professional ones. So, will it work? The cheaper laptops, yes, they will work, but they are not made for that. Okay, a sheet with a lot of boring computer specs, but regretfully, we have to go over there if you want to buy the good stuff. Um, this is pretty much what I already said in my previous videos, because the specs don't differ as much, but there are some little things that you have to bear in mind. Of course, the Intel Core i7 8th generation, at least 4 cores, preferably an i9 processor. That is the top of the bill and can't be insanely expensive. The Intel versus AMD processor, yes, my personal preference is an Intel processor. AMD, is it bad? No, not really. But you have to bear in mind that if you choose for an AMD, Thunderbolt is not an option. It's an Intel technology, and I heard that there are some compatibility issues with MIDI controls when it comes to AMD. So there is some compatibility problems with AMD. So I wouldn't choose for that. It's somewhat cheaper, yes, indeed, but yeah, it's not my company. If you lie about the specs and say in your ad campaigns that your stuff is twice as fast as your competition, and it turns out it's definitely not, and it's only 10 or 20%, sorry, then you are trying to make your business with the wrong arguments. That is AMD, typical AMD. Then 16 gigabytes of RAM. Yeah, 8 gigabytes will work, but if you are choose 16 gigabytes. Buying a new computer, I mean, choose 16 gigabytes. Then a 1 terabyte SSD. Yeah, I SSDs are expensive, and that's why they are not in the most cheaper laptops. There are spinning hard drives in those laptops. Bear in mind that if you have a cheaper laptop, you have a spinning magnetic bladder drive, and that turns at an RPM of 4,500 rounds per minute. That is too slow to read stuff off your hard disk if you have multiple tracks, for example. You will kill your you won't break it, but it's too slow to load the stuff from your hard drive. So if you are choosing for a spinning magnetic bladder hard drive, make sure that you choose a 7200 RPM hard drive. Bear in mind, laptops are not made to be speedy. Laptops are made to be compact, and that's why manufacturers do concessions in those laptops, and one of those concessions is a slower hard drive of 4500 RPM. The absolute bare minimum is 500 gigabytes. That's the bare minimum. A lot of SSDs are 128 gigabytes. That's too little. 250, 65 gigabytes. That's too low. You will run out of space. probably after you install your DAW and your sample packs. So don't do that. 500 gigabytes is the minimum, and you will run out of space. It's not a question when you run. If you run out of space, you will eventually, but when you run out of space. So my advice is choose 1 terabyte of SSD, and yes, that's expensive. Something that is really new for or remarkable to pay attention for on laptops is make sure that you have a backlit keyboard. If you are producing always with lights, then it's not a problem. But if it's not super bright, it's really useful that you can see which keys you are pressing on your keyboard. So a backlit keyboard. Then a 17-inch monitor. Oh, and I saw that a lot of laptops don't even offer a 17-inch monitor. 15-inch is the bare minimum. I have a 13-inch laptop, and it's totally no, it's not really usable for music production. I've even problems with my record box because record box, why they didn't fix it I don't know, but it's bigger than my 13-inch screen allows, and that is also a bit the problem with DAWs. You don't have such little amount of room for your screen real estate. It will annoy you. So 15-inch is the bare minimum, but if you have the chance, choose a 17-inch monitor. What also is important, an external monitor connector, and that's something that you can maybe save on that 17-inch monitor. If you produce, for example, in a studio and you have there a big monitor, therefore it's really handy to have an HDMI out on your laptop, so you can connect a big ass monitor to your laptop, and if you really need it on the road, that you can produce with that 15-inch monitor that is in your laptop. HDMI is really recommended. Then a side-scrolling mouse or a Magic Mouse from Apple, so you can scroll to the side on your timeline. And Thunderbolt for an external sound card. Again, AMD doesn't support that. I have compiled a cheat sheet for computers for music production. I put that on my Patreon. On the first page, I have compiled a list of those things that I said, but I divided in the specs of the bare minimum, the i5 processor, for example. Then I have a column with the recommended specs that I already communicated with you, and then the optimum specs with the i9 processor and extra storage facilities, second monitor, etc. This is if you are doing studio production work, you definitely need that. If you are a bedroom producer, let's say it that way, then this column will be enough. Some questions, most asked questions: desktop, laptop, Windows, Mac, for example. Then on the second page, I have a compiled list of the most used computer terms with their explanation. And on the last page, I have the computer component basics. So where do you need to pay attention for the hard disk? What is a motherboard? What does a motherboard? What does a RAM memory do? For example, that cheat sheet you can download if you are a Patreon member on my on the Patreon website, patreon.com/DexterClark with 2 X's. Then models, and not the model that I've showed you here. I just wanted to have a picture of a naked woman over there. I have compiled some. I've looked on the internet and I looked at some specs of some different brands. and I have picked out some laptops. It's definitely not the definitive guide, definitely not, but I picked out some good laptops. First of all, the Dell XPS 15. I noticed that Dell isn't really clear with communicating their types. Dell XPS 15 is a whole branch of computers. One of those computers, I think it was the middle in that, was one with an i7 processor with a 2.2 gigahertz clock speed. Sorry. Clock speed, and I I couldn't figure out if it was a 4-core or a 6-core because the specs don't line up with each other. The Intel side says it's 6-core, and I think that is the true information, and that they made an error on the Dell website. On the Dell website it says 4 cores, and on the Intel side it says 6 cores. So I don't know, but I think it's 6 cores. And the funny thing is, you will see in a minute that another brand has the same problem. Then 16 gigabytes of memory, to 512 gigabytes SSD. Not super, but it's okay. And a 15-inch screen, bare minimum. It's about 2100, 2100, including the VAT. Then I selected the HP EliteBook, the 1050G1, and again the same thing with the processor. The website above says 4 cores, and if you look at the specs below, it says 6 cores, and the Intel site again says 6 cores. So I think it's 6 cores at 2.6 gigahertz, 32 gigabytes of RAM. So you're pretty solid with that. 1 terabyte of SSD. So you're pretty solid with that, and a 15-inch screen, bare minimum, 3,400 euros, including the VAT. Then Asus or Asus. This site is a little bit vague in the specs and price. I saw that you can compile. What I think they do, that you can switch components or something. I saw a configuration over there, and that is I picked out different components from that list. So you can choose for an i7 4-core at 2.8 gigahertz. That's pretty solid. The RAM memory, yeah, they're pretty vague about that. I don't know. Then 512 gigabyte SSD, so it's okay, and you can choose for a 17-inch screen. The prices were not on there, but in the next sheet I have a Asus ZenBook Pro, the UX 5500 VDBN00HT, and that was a specific vendor in the Netherlands. Of that specific Asus notebook. So an i7 processor, 4-core, 2.8 gigahertz, 16 gigabytes of RAM, 512 gigabyte SSD, and a 15-inch screen. So it's pretty okay. The 15-inch screen is bare minimum. 1,800 euros, including the VAT, is a pretty good deal. Then the MacBook Pro, the Apple 15-inch model. They don't have 17-inch. I saw i7 4-core processor, 2.9 gigahertz. Regretfully, it's a 7th generation processor, so it is 20% slower than the previous generation. 16 gigabytes of RAM, 512 gigabytes SSD, 15-inch screen, 15-inch again, bare minimum, 3,300, including the VAT. It's pretty pricey. You have to bear a couple of things in mind. I saw that I forgot to mention the USB thing. It has only USB-C, so if you are connecting your USB dongle or your record box, you want to plug in your USB, that won't work. You need a converter cable with that, and that is always the accessory you forget to pack when you go on a trip. So, Apple. Then another con is the weird keyboard touch, the weird key touch. They made Normally it's a butterfly and mechanism of those keys that are jumping up and down, but they did something weird to that. So the distance of that clicking of pressing a key is lower, and I heard a couple of people that are not can't type with that keyboard. It's for them really annoying. I don't have really experience with it myself. It has a big touchpad, and I also heard a lot of people complaining about that touchpad, that if you, because it's so big, you touch it always, and you have a lot of accidental touches. And if you are leaning your wrists on your laptop, then you accidentally touch that that touchpad. So Apple. No memory expansion later. I don't know for sure if it holds up. I could only find specs of MacBook Pros of a couple of years ago. I know that they try to work with that unibody thing, so you can't open the MacBook, so you can't expand memory. I couldn't figure out if this was a unibody laptop. I think it is, so that means no memory expansion later. So gigabytes of RAM. Yes, yeah, okay, you can't expand it later. Definitely, it's not, those mentioned notebooks are not the only ones out there. There are probably good notebooks out there that I didn't mention in this list. Then you have the possibility to answer me some questions about laptops for music production. So I'll switch to the chat and I look if someone is here to ask me a question. No, nobody's reacting. Okay, now, so then it's a really short live stream. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have a question, leave it in the comments below. I try to answer it. If you want to know if a specific type of product will work, then please provide the specs with that, so I can answer it quickly. If it takes me too much time, sorry, I have a lot of stuff going on right now. Ask me again in a live stream or book a Skype call, or you can become a Patreon member. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. And the next video will be the how to prepare your DJ set video. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.